Alright, what's up everybody? Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on using Posit Cloud to access our studio. So to get started here, we're going to go to Posit Cloud. Posit Cloud is essentially, we've been talking this semester about how you have a workspace in your R and your RStudio, or where your data and things are stored that R knows to draw from. Posit Cloud allows you essentially to run RStudio using the software or the servers of Posit. So a few benefits to this. One, you don't actually have to have R installed on your computer. Two, you can access it from any computer. Three, when you have an issue in Posit Cloud, we can reproduce it because it'll be the same issue that anybody else would also have when using Posit Cloud. So the benefit is that a lot of times you may have something that's just happening on your computer and you can't find someone else or that has the same problem. So by using Posit Cloud, we're able to guarantee that we all are working from the same place. So to get started, what we want to do is you're going to hit sign up if you haven't already signed up, or I'm going to log in because I've already logged in. Make an account and then log in, and I'll pause the video now to do that. Alright, and once you get here, you'll see here is a set of your different projects. You can name your projects in, you can have a different project for each of your classes. You can see here, this was where the workspace is for Soc 302. And I like to have a different workspace for each of my classes or different things that I'm working on. So in this situation, I'm going to have one for 302, and I'll make another one here for Stat 215 or STA 215. So it's going to get things started here, and while it does, I'm going to explain a little bit about what it is that we're looking at with R and RStudio as this loads up. So RStudio is going to be split into 4 different segments. The one's not open yet, but I will start from the essentially what is going to be in the bottom left. So this here on the left, this is base R. This is, if you were to just open up R, this is what it would be. You could type codes directly into it, and it'll know what to do here. Now in R, as we've gone over, you could create objects and save things as objects, and those objects will be in the memory of R, the temporary memory. You can also set it to be the permanent memory, but the temporary memory is going to be loaded, or what we may call the environment. So let's say we have a few different things. We set, we did some math, we figured out a number that was important, the 16 was important, and we're going to save it as an object by pointing at it that we're going to call important. You can name objects anything, but now whenever we have this word important, this used exactly like this with the letters like that, with the undercase letters, case sensitive, it's going to draw up this whatever here was saved as. So there's an object called important that references to the value of 16 or the number 16. Now, some of the benefits of RStudio and benefits of RStudio is that up here in the top right we have what's called our environment. This shows us what is currently locally loaded into R. So if we only had this screen, you'd have to remember that important was set to be 16. But now we have up here, we could see what's currently loaded. And there's a few other benefits we'll see of looking at the environment, but that's one of the benefits. It gives us we can look at we can see what's currently loaded in, look at history and some other stuff. You can peruse through it as you please. This bottom right one here is the utilities you could think of. It's going to say what's currently what files are currently loaded into the workspace. It'll have some stuff on some packages, help, documentation, stuff like that, etc. Now the fourth one is going to be in this top left corner, but it doesn't initially start open. This is what we're going to call our script. Up in the top left here, we're going to open up a new R script by going to the white piece of paper with a green plus sign on it. We're going to create a script. And the script here is essentially where we can write down code that we've run or have ran, and then send it down to console, send it over to the R. So we wanted to make this 2 plus 6 plus 2 plus 6. We wanted to run that, and then we wanted to save our important as 16. Oh, to point at it. This would now be saved in the script. There's a bunch of benefits to using scripts. One of the most important ones being that we can keep track of what we did. We can reproduce what we did before. We can also tell others what we did or what we did before. It's a lot easier for example, me to give you feedback if I can see what it is that you've done. And it also allows you to do similar things in the future. Once you do something, you never have to memorize that code again because it'll always be saved in your script. You just go back to in the script where you last did that same thing, and you can find the code used to produce that. And you may use that to do the exact same thing or maybe adapt it a little bit to do the new thing that you need to be doing. But it's really important that we work from scripts because it has a lot of benefits. And when we run things up here, we can highlight them in the script and hit run, and it's going to basically move it down to this R and run it here. So this is some of the big benefits. However, one thing to note is that this is just an empty script in that there's nothing currently, we don't have any of the stuff from before, any of the script or things that we've run from earlier in the class yet in this script here. Another thing to realize is that what we've been calling the working directory in this case is empty. The only thing here is just this history file, and this is just the project file from Posit. So there's nothing currently, none of the data or the scripts or any of the stuff we need are currently in our working directory on Posit. So to get those, we have to go back to ISLE, or go back to our canvas and download them and upload them to Posit Cloud. So these are all the different data and scripts that we have for the class. So what we want to do is download all of them, and then so we don't actually need all of them, but just for simplicity's sake, we're going to download all of them and then use this button here to upload them into RStudio. So I'll do that now. We're going to right click on this, we're going to zip it up. And you don't have to zip it up, you can just upload each of them separately, or we can compress. So we're just going to send it to a compressed zip file. And now we could just upload this one here. The next step here is to open up the script that we're given for the class. So here you can see that I have it labeled out. This is what the script was for the class as of 2-1. This is what the script was as of 2-11. So if we click on this, we open it up. Now we have here a copy of the script that was given, that is given to you and available on Canvas now. But this has most of the stuff, or actually all the stuff you're going to need for the quiz. The quizzes that you've used for the quizzes up until this point. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is this is a saved copy that I gave you from this date. So what we want to do is save this script here as your name. So I'll use my middle name here. And instead of having a date, because we're still working on this, this is a currently file we're about to change and use to do the next set of work. We're going to call this working. Get rid of shared because it's not shared. So this is what my working script is going to look like. Let's say we wanted to do, we're getting ready to take the probability and contingency tables ISLE. So my expectation when you start a new ISLE lesson or when you're taking the next quiz is that you already completed all of the previous quizzes and assignments, and you have all that syntax saved in your R and that in your RStudio as your script, and that you're able to run it. So now you're caught up in the 2023 210. So when you go down to run this to complete this ISLE lesson, you have the stuff that you needed to that you were expected to have from previous lessons. However, for now, let's go through and run this to just sort of walk through some of the basic principles of how we can use RStudio, and then I'll show you how I expect that you complete these probability and contingency. So if you've been following along, you've been doing all the other quizzes, you may not need to look at this part, but if you're still trying to get used to some of the stuff you've done from before, then this is a good little introduction. So here is where you give some information about the script. So here has the name, so we're going to change it here as if we're a different person, right? Always change here, say Zachary Dillon, right? You could change some of the dates, so 2023 to 13. You could make this as working, or you could set it from the first day you start the script. So this certain situation, this one here is called working, right? It's the name of the file. Not terribly important, but the key thing here to take away is that by using this hashtag, we set that everything after this is a note, or just text written to yourself. Having good notation and good things written to yourself will help you know what you did, explain to others what you did, and keep track of things. So that if you come back to it in a week or so, then you'll know what happened. As you get better and more comfortable with script, you can leave less notes, but for now, I'd say the more notes that you leave to yourself, the better. So the first thing you'll note here was this is setting the working directory. Because we're in Posit Cloud, we don't actually need to set the working directory because it's going to be drawing everything from the working from the project folder in Posit that we already just uploaded it. So we can skip that part. Next, these are the different packages that we're going to use in the class, or that we've used so far at least. So by adding this hashtag here, what I'm saying is that make a note that you may need to do this. And the reason I made the note you may need to do it is that you only need to actually install packages the first time that you use it, or one time per computer, or one time every time it updates. You don't need to install packages every single time you run your script. So I left this note here as a reminder that I might need to re-download it, but that I didn't need to download it before. Now, because this is the first time we're using these packages, we are going to need to download these packages. So we can do to run and install these packages, we're going to highlight it and hit run. Now you'll note here that I didn't delete this note here for this package install package for this first piece line here. That's because this is just a note saying what I'm going to be doing over these next 6 or so lines of code. So you highlight it and hit run, and it's going to install all of these packages. And then afterwards, I'm going to go back in and add these back again because we shouldn't need to do it again. So we still have that note if we ever need to. We can download it, but we don't need to. But we shouldn't need to do it again. So next we have these packages here. So library, this is going to load those packages in. I should have waited until this finished running, but that shouldn't matter. It should just queue right up. So you have a little bit of flexibility on how this is going to install. It looks like quite a lot, but these are all the dependencies and things with each other. So I'll take that as a second to introduce why it is. So R has packages because the base capabilities of R, while pretty strong, are the real core fundamental of R, the community, is that you're able to make your own packages or make your own commands or functions that you can use to do particular things that you need to do, or that folks need to do. And people make them, they make them open access so anyone can see the code, and then they share them with each other. So the reason that you can see here, sometimes we don't want to install every single package ever on R, is that sometimes there's some conflicts between what some of the different different packages will do. So this can sometimes be an issue, but for the purposes of this class, we're not going to download a ton of packages, so it shouldn't be an issue, but it's just something to keep in mind going forward. So we have now all the packages, they're loaded up. So next what we're going to do is we're going to load this data in here. So these are the first 3 data we used for the first few labs, so the Star Wars clean, the stores, the patient data. So now we have here the data sets that we could see in our environment. So in our environment, we could see values, we could see data sets, we could see variables, we could see all the we could see the objects and get some information about all the objects. We can also, for some cases, click on an object to get more information about it. This is especially useful for data sets. So when we click on the patient data set, we're able to see all the information we have for each of the patients, their age, their resting heart rate, their cholesterol, their max heart rate, and whether or not they have ADHD. So we click on it, we can scroll through and look at the data this way. This is really valuable for a lot of data sets, especially when you're trying to figure out what the data is looking like, or get a sense of what the variables are and what variables are included. Just clicking on the data set and looking through it is usually a good step. And the nice thing about RStudio is we can click on it right here in the environment, and it'll pop right over here, and we can take a look. So remember, the lab we had on operationalization, all that was required was for you to get the summary statistics of the Star Wars data. Now, for the next one here, we're doing central tendency. Now, you'll note here that this is the same line of code as was right up here. So the benefit with when you create an object, what it's gonna it'll by default save over the previous object. So by running this line of code twice, it's gonna be the same thing. So it's gonna replace this with whatever's over here. So in this situation, it doesn't really matter that we run it twice, but this is something to realize of how you could sometimes alter or make mistakes to the objects you have. And that's the reason that we have the script. So we can always get back and see when we last changed that object. So as an example, if we were to just change the number, if we were to just set the number 17 to stores, now our stores is only 17. No longer do we have that data set. If we just typed everything here, we may not know what we did or how that happened. But because we are able to see it, we can see how we loaded in the data here. So one of the nice things about scripts also is that we should just be able to run all the way down the line of all the stuff that we've done before. And after we run this right here looks exactly like it did the end of our last session, or if we were to run all the scripts, exactly like what it would look like. So we were able to run it. Right now we have exactly what we needed for up until everything that was done until the last quiz. One of the benefits also of script here is that we can restart this session of R and run everything again to recreate the environment all from scratch. So the files are still here after we reset R, they're still in this, but the environment is completely empty. And we never want to save the environment because we always want to be able to reset R and recreate everything that is in our environment based upon what is in our script. So now we have one of these benefits here, so we can take this down and run all the way down. And it'll get us all the way where we're at, to the point where we're now ready to do the probability contingency tables. The next quiz here. So what we're going to do as our next step is we're going to go to our aisle and we're going to open up the probability and contingency. So we're all set up, everything's set up from the last, we're caught up right up to the last quiz, and we're in our new Posit. Now, there's a few different ways you can go about taking the quiz and doing the Posit lessons. One that I recommend and work from the assumption from is that you go through the Posit, do the activities, do the suggestions, read it, do the stuff like that, and then afterwards you go and complete the quiz using the aisle as your notes. I also understand that a lot of folks just kind of want to do the quiz and aisle at the same time. And if that's what you want to do, that's okay. Just know that there could be, especially when it comes to R, there can be, it's very important that you run things in a very particular order. And to give an example, we can go back to our Posit here, and we could look at some of the stuff that we did in this last lab and see why it may be, why you may run into issues if you try to do the same, if you were to move things out of order. So let's look at this set of code right here. You go back to the last aisle if you want to get some of the details of it, but essentially we're looking at the mean age here. And then in this line here, we're creating a new variable called age C67 and we're creating it by looking at number by each person's age, right? Patient, looking in the data set, patient at the variable age, and subtracting 67. So this is age centered on 67. If we go to our patient data, we could see this variable here. Now, we have their age, 63, and their age 67 is -4. And essentially you could say that's because they're 4 years younger than age 67. 63 minus 67 is -4. So we created this new variable using this line here, and then we took a look at it, compared those two. This was the activity from the last line. We won't go too deep into it. However, if you wanted to come down to this line here, and we wanted to make a box plot of the variable age C67, you would have had to create this box plot after creating the variable age C67. if you were to go through and do this before, try to run this before creating this variable, it's not going to be able to find it because the variable age C67 wouldn't yet be in your data set patient. So it's important that you're putting your syntax in the right order. And I don't expect you to be able to master all this stuff yet. You should certainly have a sense of what is an object and be able to notice when objects are missing or data variables are missing and know where to see variables, what they are. I don't expect you necessarily at this point to be able to do an in-depth analysis of the syntax and know the order the things need to go in. And for that reason, I give you the syntax in the order I expect you to put it into R. So some of these syntax are things that aren't actually need R. You can do directly in ISLE, such as the Titanic stuff, right? We're saving a new thing here, using this information, and adding it and playing around with the Titanic. So all this is going to be done right inside of R, or inside of ISLE. However, when you get down here to the GSS, when you're working with the General Social Survey, then we now need to, I'm working from the assumption that you're doing each of these steps in the order that I present them. So the first thing we did was install this package Haven. Now this was already there. I already gave this to you just because it's important. And read through the ISLE. I'm not going to read through the entire thing today, but I gave you this part so that it was already lined up. But as you go through and read this, you'll see that you need to add packages if they're installed. Have to be in the beginning of the script. So now we're down here. What I expect is that you're working from taking these syntax and moving them over to R in the order that I gave it to you. So the first thing you'll note is that you got to get rid of these periods. And you see here are the notes, right? And then this is going to, first thing we're going to do is load in the dataset GSS. Here we go, we can take a look. All right, got the dataset loaded in from our SAV file. So you're going through and reading stuff, and I expect you're coming down to the next line. You're reading through, you say, okay, cool, you're bringing this in now. You're taking a look at it, you're running that line of syntax. You're getting this next part here. You're doing a table of the variable. I'm going to keep moving this. I'm just going to keep uploading everything that I see here. I'd recommend going slow enough that going through it as you're reading it rather than just copying every line you see. But because I've already made it and read it quickly, I'm going to go kind of quick. And I'm going to load all the syntax in the exact order of what it was, of how it comes up in the ISLE. And this is one of the reasons why you want to be careful about just loading things. It's actually a good time to look at this. Is that what you'll see here, this first line here, is this was me telling you, introducing this new command, the mutate command. And I was telling you what things go into the mutate command. In other words, what are the inserts that you need in order to use the mutate command to make a change or make a new variable in your data set. So the mutate command asks you to first put in the data set, then a comma, then you put in the name of the new variable you're making, equals this if else, so it's saying, and has the test here, so if else is if it meets a certain condition. So first you have what the condition is, and next you have what happens if the condition is met, and then what happens if the condition is not met. So applying that to our data set here to create this new variable that we wanted, it's called monthly fear. We have mutate, our data set, GSS, our new var, monthly fear, our condition, which is that afraid of is less than or equal to 3, our if met, which is yes, and our if not met, which is no. And then we're going to make a table of it. Now what you'll notice though is if you try to just run this, it's not going to work. Well, I mean it is going to run something, but that's because there's nothing actually called, or it's not going to give you an error necessarily, but it's not actually creating a new variable. Because there's no variable called dataset, there's no variable called new var, we'll be making a new variable, but there's no variable called or object called condition, no object called if met, no object called if not met. This is me guiding you on what was going to be happening in this next line. So now we should be able to run these two lines of code to get to run the data here. So this should be. Yeah, it's trying to run. Yeah, there we go. So that's my expectation, is that you're going through in each of these. I won't walk through I won't walk through all of them, but I'll just real quickly go through and add in all the things here. So let's say you go through, you're reading the aisle, you're moving the code over, you're playing, you're moving the stuff over, and then you finish this, and you go to the quiz, you're answering the questions, you finish the quiz, everything is good, you're ready, you're done with the day. You can curse your stats professor one last time, and then you're ready to be done for the day. So you have it saved here as a working script. However, what we want to do is make a new copy of this syntax so that we can always come back to it. So to do that, we're going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to replace this working with the current date. And let me save this. And you go back in. Now we see we have this new one, 213. Now you turn off your Posit, right? We'll say here we just restart R, come back, load up, it's going to look like this. Now you remember that what the principle here is that we do not change scripts we do not change scripts once we add the date. This is a thing you can always come back and reference. This is what your script looked like on this date. However, if you wanted to make more changes again, you'd go back to this working one. Now, if you were having trouble getting things up and running, you can always go back to this old one, because you know that this one runs because you know that this one worked enough to get you what you needed. So you can always go back to this one and then work again, but you never change a file once you've given it the date, because it's posted, it's unchanged, it's just an old record copy. Consider it printed out piece of paper. If you change it's just because you write on the thing that's printed, doesn't mean that it wasn't printed before. Doesn't mean that it wasn't saved. Although if you do change it, it'll be easy to save and mess up. So just don't ever change this. Now, one of the benefits again of this script is when you go back to your next session, you can highlight all this, run it, and it'll go through and create all the stuff that you needed all the way down to the bottom here. So that's all about what there is for introducing you to RStudio in Posit Cloud. And the last note I want to share you with is, please share your syntax with each other. It's totally okay to send each other syntax. It'd be my preference that someone doesn't do it all and then send it to everyone else. But as the semester goes on, you're going to have to do somewhat unique things with it. You may have a different quiz question than someone else has, or you may be working with a data set that is for your own activity that other folks aren't working with, or only one or two other people are working with. So I recommend you don't get in the habit of just getting someone else's syntax and then just using that, because that's not going to work all semester. However, I don't want you to make that thing you have to struggle through everything on your own completely. It's best to do it to struggle with a friend. It's okay to share syntax. It's not cheating. Just what I ask you, and I think would make it better for everyone involved, is when you share syntax, or when you ask someone for their syntax, you ask them to explain what it does and try to figure out what it was that you were struggling with to get it loaded up. However, please work together. Please share syntax. It's not cheating. You're not going to be required to memorize all these codes. That's why in fact, one of the benefits of having a script is that we don't have to memorize this. We can always go back, and if we ever wanted to say filter again to get rid of to limit our data set to just folks with that meet a certain criteria, we can always use this code that we did and adapt it to our current needs and our current thing we want to do. And we don't have to memorize any of the stuff. So there's not a focus on memorization. Script is meant to be shared. That's what it's about. So hope this was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, or if I could make any clarifications. And I'm happy to meet, chat, and help you get this set up if you want someone to sit with you while we do it together. Thank you.